Life in a Japanese jail. Did you know that in Japan, prisoners must sit in a specific position for hours without moving, and breaking this rule can lead to harsh punishments? Yes, you heard that right. Japan's prison system is one of the strictest in the world, and life behind bars over there is nothing like what you see in movies. But is it effective? Is it too harsh? And how does it compare to prisons in other countries? Stick around, because I'm about to tell you the shocking truth about life in a Japanese jail. The daily routine. Now, if you think waking up early for school or work is tough, wait until you hear this. Inmates in Japanese prisons have a strict schedule that they must follow without question. The day usually starts at around 6:40 a.m., and the moment they wake up, they must immediately make their bed, fold their blanket, and sit in a fixed position until further instructions are given. No stretching, no moving around, just sitting and waiting. After that, breakfast is served. And let me tell you, it's not what you might expect. It usually consists of rice, miso soup, some vegetables, and a small portion of fish or meat. Sounds decent, right? Well, the catch is that inmates must finish their meal within a set time, usually 15 to 20 minutes. No talking is allowed during meals. If they don't finish their food within the time limit, too bad. The food is taken away, and they have to wait for the next meal. After breakfast, it's time to work. Yes, you heard me right. Inmates in Japan don't just sit around all day. They are required to work, and the work is no joke. Some make furniture, some assemble electronic parts, and others sew uniforms. The goal is to teach prisoners discipline and skills they can use when they are released. Work lasts for several hours, with a short lunch break in between. After work, inmates get a short exercise break, but even that is highly controlled. They have to march in lines, move in unison, and follow every instruction without fail. One wrong step, and punishment follows. Dinner is served in the evening, and just like breakfast and lunch, it's silent, quick, and strict. After that, inmates return to their cells, where they must sit in a designated position until lights out at 9 p.m. And that's their life, day after day, with no changes and no room for mistakes. Rules and punishments. Now, you may think rules in prison are common everywhere, but in Japan, they take it to another level. Everything from how you walk, how you sit, how you eat, and even how you look at the guards is controlled. For example, prisoners are not allowed to make unnecessary eye contact with guards. If they do, they could be punished. They must also follow strict sitting rules. When they are in their cells, they must sit in a formal kneeling position called zaiza for long periods. Imagine sitting on your knees for hours without moving. Painful, right? But in Japan, that's the norm. Breaking a rule, even a minor one, can lead to serious punishments. Some inmates are placed in solitary confinement, where they have to sit still for hours without moving. Others may have their meals reduced or lose their work privileges. According to the authorities, the harsh discipline is meant to break bad habits and enforce obedience. But has it gone a little too far? Prison cells and living conditions. Now, let's take a look at where these prisoners sleep. Japanese prison cells are simple but extremely clean. Many cells have tatami mats instead of beds, and inmates sleep on futons that they must fold neatly every morning. Some cells are private, while others hold several inmates together. Toilets are inside the cells, and prisoners have little personal space. Unlike in some countries where prisoners can freely interact, Japanese inmates are often isolated and have very little social interaction. Talking is only allowed during specific times, and even then, it must be brief and respectful. There is no shouting, no joking around, and no casual conversations like you might see in American prisons. Japanese prisons focus heavily on discipline, and this is reflected in how the cells are maintained. Inmates must keep their living spaces spotless at all times. Every morning, they follow a strict cleaning routine where they wipe down their futons, sweep the floors, and ensure that every item is in its designated place. Any clutter or mess is not tolerated. Even their personal belongings, which are already limited, must be arranged in a specific manner. Privacy is almost non-existent in Japanese prisons. Guards frequently check on inmates, and even bathroom use is monitored to some extent. Some prisoners may have a small shelf for personal items like books or letters, but beyond that, there are no luxuries. The walls are bare, and distractions are minimal. Unlike Western prisons, where some inmates can decorate their cells with photos or artwork, Japanese prison cells are meant to be plain and uniform. For inmates serving long sentences, the monotony of living in these conditions can be mentally exhausting. With strict schedules, constant monitoring, and little to no personal freedom, life inside a Japanese prison cell is designed to enforce discipline and control every aspect of a prisoner's day-to-day existence. Food in Japanese prisons. One thing that surprises many people is the food. While prison food in some countries is often described as terrible, Japan takes a different approach. The meals are nutritious and well-balanced, including rice, soup, fish, vegetables, and sometimes even noodles. Each meal is carefully measured to meet health standards, and waste is not tolerated. Inmates must finish everything on their plate. While the food itself is decent, the way it is served is strict. Inmates eat alone in silence, following specific rules. They must sit in a certain posture, hold their bowls in a specific way, and finish their meals within a strict time limit. There is no choice in what they eat. Everyone gets the same meal, and that's that. The portion sizes are controlled to ensure that prisoners receive just enough nutrition without any excess. Unlike in some prisons where inmates can get extra food from the commissary, Japanese prisons do not allow much in terms of additional snacks or treats. Some prisoners may have the opportunity to purchase limited items, but these are rare and highly regulated. Meals are served at fixed times, and being late is not an option. Prisoners must sit properly, with their backs straight, and eat in complete silence. Talking during meals is strictly forbidden. Another interesting thing about Japanese prison food is that it reflects traditional Japanese cuisine. Instead of heavily processed meals, inmates receive meals similar to what is eaten in everyday Japanese households. The food may not be gourmet, but it is simple, nutritious, and meant to keep prisoners healthy. For foreign inmates, adjusting to Japanese prison food can be difficult. Those who are not used to eating rice and fish every day may struggle with the lack of variety. However, regardless of personal preference, every inmate must follow the same meal rules. This strict approach to food is another example of how discipline is deeply ingrained in Japan's prison system. How Japanese prisons compare to prisons in other countries. Now let's compare Japanese prisons to those in other countries. In the United States, prisons are known for overcrowding, violence, and gangs. Inmates have more freedom to talk, interact, and even form groups. However, the high level of violence and gang activity makes American prisons one of the toughest in the world. In Europe, countries like Norway and the Netherlands take a more relaxed approach. Their prisons focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment. Prisoners live in rooms that look more like college dorms, and they have access to education, work training, and even recreational activities. The goal is to help inmates become better citizens when they leave. Japan, on the other hand, believes in strict discipline. The focus is on control, structure, and order. While Japanese prisons are not violent, the mental pressure of strict rules can be extremely hard on inmates. So, what do you think? Would you rather be in a strict but orderly prison like in Japan, or in a more relaxed prison like in Europe? Every system has its pros and cons, and while Japan's method ensures discipline and order, it can be mentally exhausting. Other countries in Europe focus on rehabilitation, but they sometimes struggle with maintaining order. At the end of the day, the goal of any prison system should be to prevent crime and help people become better citizens. But the question is, what's the best way to do that? Let us know what you think in the comments below, and if you'd like to learn more about Japan's mind-blowing culture, then subscribe to my channel right away.